to Treasury Notes, a show dedicated to the latest news and information from the office of West Virginia State Treasurer John Perdue. I'm your host, Gina Joynes. The Treasurer's office is often referred to as the bank of state government. But in addition to the cash management functions of the state, the Treasurer oversees many other programs and operations. Some of those initiatives include the Net Worth Financial Education Program, the Smart 529 College Savings Program, and the West Virginia Retirement Plus Plan. But in addition to those, one of the primary responsibilities of the Treasurer is to serve as the legal custodian of unclaimed property in the state. Today we are going to focus on the efforts to make sure that property is collected and returned to the rightful owners. Joining me now to talk more about the Treasurer's Unclaimed Property Division is Sara Dennison, the Receipts Manager for Unclaimed Property. Sara, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Gina.
Well, let's just start by talking about the basics of unclaimed property. We've talked about this subject on the show before, but it doesn't hurt to remind people exactly what unclaimed property is.
Unclaimed property are monies that are due back to individuals and businesses that the holder or vendor, as some of us would like to call, where they have not been able to locate those individuals to return that to them.
Well, give us some examples of what unclaimed property is. There's a wide range of, of things that are considered unclaimed property.
Correct. Unclaimed property could range from cashier's checks that were not cashed, utility deposits. If you would move from place to place and forget that you had an outstanding deposit for your water account from one county to another, interest-bearing, non-interest-bearing savings accounts, CDs, life insurance proceeds, annuities, and just various, about any type of financial instrument you can think of, there's a property type code and unclaimed property for.
You're talking about water bills, utility bills, things like that. A lot of college students sometimes.
Right, especially.
I'm sure, and you know, years and years later, it might be that you find out that you have something from back when you were in college, when you moved a couple times.
And especially in this area with a lot of transition, people coming in and out, there's quite a vast amount of utility deposits.
And if you move from state to state, that's also a reason why you may have unclaimed property in several states, right? Not just West Virginia.
Right. Whatever state you have had residence in, it's good to go back and check with their database or with their unclaimed property departments to make sure you have no outstanding funds that are due to you.
And we're going to talk a little bit later about how people can actually claim this money. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about the different types of unclaimed property. You mentioned a wide array of different things. Also, safe deposit box items, really, that's the property part of it.
Right, that's your tangible items.
And what are some of the things we find in those safe deposit boxes?
We see a lot of wills, power of attorneys, insurance policies, mostly paperwork, bonds, some currency, coin collections, etc. When you get to more of the tangible items that we'll be talking about more later regarding the auctions, you know, some people store various items in safe deposit boxes like old baseball cards, old comic books, jewelry, a lot of jewelry.
Jewelry, I know, is a big one.
Yes.
Also, sometimes it's not things that really have a monetary value, but they have personal value to people.
Personal remembrance, memento of something, maybe death certificate, mementos from children. We find pieces, locks of hair from babies' first haircuts.
Just something that is something special to that individual person. And we can talk more about the safe deposit box items in a little bit, but you know, the Treasurer's office, we often boast, has returned more than $100 million to rightful owners in the state. What are some of the ways West Virginia and State Treasurer John Perdue have been a leader in returning this money back?
Once Treasurer Perdue took office, he went from taking the office from something very small to a large organization employing many professionals that our goal is to go out and to reach the individuals, to really push businesses to file and to reach the individuals to claim that property. And
one of the ways we do that, of course, is our Unclaimed Property Bulletin. Let's talk a little bit about this bulletin. Recently in the state, around the state, the newspapers are distributing this bulletin, and this is a way that people can sift through this and find out if they have unclaimed property. We have hundreds of names in here where people can look through and see if they're listed and say, hey, you know, that's me, or that's my mom, or that's my friend. Explain how this unclaimed property bulletin works.
The Unclaimed Property Bulletin, we try to publish at least twice a year. It's just a partial listing of the properties. There's around 15,000 names that's included, and there's also a business section within that because businesses, you know, also hold unclaimed property themselves. So we want to make sure we reach out to them. But that is just a piece of it. A lot of people will see that publication and they'll think, oh, well, my name's not in this one, and they just forget about it and they go on. But on our website, the Treasurer's main website at wvsto.com, if you would go there, there's a section on the bottom where you can search for unclaimed property because our database holds millions of dollars of unclaimed property. So we need to remind people to remember that that is not just a full listing of everything. That's just an account that our database pulled from just a sampling. It's a sampling of individuals.
We put out these bulletins a couple times a year. One of the interesting things about this latest bulletin is that the safe deposit box items, the owners of the safe deposit box items, have been kind of segregated, so they have their own listing in this paper. And that's something that people can look for as well. If they may have had a safe deposit box, or if their parents had a safe deposit box that they didn't know about, this may be a good way to track it down.
Exactly. I know safe deposit boxes, as the times change, are kind of going by the wayside. Many individuals don't keep them anymore, but you know, our heritage, that was one thing that it seems like everybody has a great-grandma or grandpa that had a safe deposit box. That was their type of security and where they could put their belongings. Whereas now we don't see a whole lot of it.
But there, you may be able to find some treasures hidden.
Yeah.
Well, what can you do to claim this money? Let's talk a little bit about that.
The first thing you would want to do would be to go out to the Treasury Produce website and search for your unclaimed property. You could search by your last name, first name. You might want to try not only just your first name but your initials and see if there is a match there. If there is a match, and that does encompass our whole database, anything that is reported within 24 hours that is immediately available once that all paperwork and everything, evidence is with it. So it will encompass up to date everything out there. And if you do have a match, you'll want to create an account through our Unclaimed system. And when you create that account, you're doing just like you would any other internet application. You're assigning a username, a password, you're inputting your information. Our IT department is a great asset to the Treasurer's office. They have developed the site, and it is a secure site. You enter not only your name and address, but your driver's license number, and that it's all stored. A very secure and encrypted site. So
and this is wvtreasury.com. People can just go to wvtreasury.com, click on unclaimed property, and that's how they begin their search. Once they're there, as you said, they can type in their name or their initials and start to research to see if they or a loved one has some unclaimed property out there. And sometimes we run into the problem where the money or the items are reported and there was maybe a misspelling. That could also be something that they want to be cognizant of.
Right. That's why, you know, you might type in your full name and initial. You might just type in your initials, and it will bring up a listing. For example, if you would type J. Smith, you're going to see every name that starts with a J ends with a Smith. So, you know, to be more search specific, you could start out with your full name and possibly an initial, and then kind of go back, step back from there to search the database.
And this e-claims process, once people get done with the search, they can go through the e-claims process for the most part. There are some qualifications to do the e-claims,
there are.
right?
Once their account is set up and they have input their information, including the driver's license, that is matched through the DMV to make sure that that person, you know, is a complete match to that record. But once that goes in, everything is processed online. It's similar to filing, how a lot of us file our income taxes online now. We've eliminated the need for notarization, and the need for submitting paper copies of the documents rather than submitting your copy of your driver's license or birth certificate, that's all checked online, and it's done through that verification with the DMV. And the notarization is as simple as going on and reading the disclaimer and clicking that yes, you agree to submit your claim online. And then once all that is a match is proven, it comes into the office and it's taken care of from our side.
Now, to be listed on that online database, you have to have at least, I think, is it $50?
$50, yes.
So you're due at least $50. Mm-hmm. And to do the e-claims, there's a limit of what you can actually file for e-claim, correct?
Yes.
So you have to, there are some instances where you will have to fill out some paperwork.
Right, and there are some, if you're claiming on an estate or possibly an heir or a trustee, or maybe even for a Uniform Gift Minor Act,
mm-hmm.
if you're claiming for a child, there are some little quirks to where we're going to come back and say we need more information. We need a copy of a death certificate. We need a copy of a power of attorney. It just depends on who you're claiming for and what the type of property is. But most of the instances are simple individual claims.
But overall, the e-claim system has really boosted the way the Unclaimed Property Division does business now.
Oh, definitely. It's made things so much faster. The turnaround time is used to go on 2 to 3 months. Now we're down to 6 to 8 weeks max processing a claim. I mean, once it does leave our office, it does go to the auditor's office for the check to be cut. So you still have that lag, but as far as it's decreased the time in half of processing and returning the funds.
Technology has really changed the way we do business in the Treasurer's office. Treasurer Perdue is always talking about being an advocate for technology and really wanting to change the landscape as to how we do our banking services. This all ties into it.
Exactly, and as I mentioned earlier, our IT department, they have been just immeasurable in what they can do and what they have developed for us in-house on both sides, not just the claim side, but on the reporting side.
And it's important to note, I think, for a lot of people when we talk about unclaimed property is that there are no fees to get your money back. This is your money, right?
Right, and if there is a website that would take you to a fee, don't do it. Return, go straight to the states, whether it's West Virginia or another one, go straight to their website and link out. Or use the NAPA approved, it's missingmoney.com. That will take you to each state's treasury site.
So if you go to missingmoney.com, then you can actually see if you have money in other states as well.
Correct. You will click on the state.
It's important to note that when you're dealing with unclaimed property, as we said a little earlier, if you've lived in several states, you want to make sure that you check the other states that you've lived in to make sure that you're not missing money in those states as well, because each state has its own system, correct?
Exactly, and we cannot return other states' money. We might get it reported to us, but it's not returned to the individual. We return it directly to that state through a reciprocal process.
And not all states do their unclaimed property the same way.
Right. Everybody has different processes. There is, some consistency, but not everything, is electronic. Some states do all paper forms, and some states are straight.
Another thing I think it's important to mention is that real estate is actually not considered unclaimed property. That's something totally different.
That's handled through the auditor's office.
Because a lot of times when people hear the words unclaimed property, they think property as in land, and that's not something that we deal with.
Right. These are monies and just strictly safe deposit box items.
Okay. Well, as receipts manager, you actually handle the function of processing the money that this state takes from holders. Explain how that works. Explain your end of it, because you have a little different perspective. You're not one of the field representatives going out and handing over the checks or saying, I saw your name in the unclaimed property bulletin. Here's how we can get your money back to you. You deal with some of the institutions that we take money in from.
Right. We refer to those as the holder, and we take in we call holder reports. And so when a business or estates are reported to us, the reports are entered, the receipts, when their money comes in, the receipts are sent directly to our check warehouse, and it goes to processing there. And again, IT has created a program for that, to where rather than seeing paper copies of deposits, and then just recently, as not even 2 years ago, we went to CDs, transporting CDs back and forth from the warehouse location to our location here in Charleston. Now it's all internet based. So once a holder makes a deposit and sends in the report, if we have a question on, was the check for the correct amount or whatever, we can go to that direct link and see an actual visual image.
Sarah, give us some examples of who these holders are. What entities out there actually have unclaimed property that they would have to then turn over to the state? And they do have guidelines they have to adhere to.
They do. We have banks, obviously credit unions, that type of financial institutions. We have vendors, any type of vendors that could issue vendor payments or refunds to customers. Any type of business, insurance companies.
Even small businesses of people, maybe you worked there and
right,
you left
proprietorships.
And you didn't get your last paycheck.
Exactly. Even estate filings.
So there are a lot of entities out there that have to deal with unclaimed property. And if you're a business owner, that's something we should note, that you have to make sure you're complying, correct?
Exactly. There's a lot of different issues on compliance for the business end because each business is different. And where Treasurer Perdue likes to familiarize each business and try to get them to where they're compliant with not only the West Virginia state law, but their internal procedures too are correct. It used to be people would get a check, wasn't cash, they would put it right back into the company bank account. That's not how it works. Not from an accounting standpoint, not from an unclaimed property standpoint. Those still are funds that belong to a person or an individual or a business. And so they need to be taken care of in that aspect.
So do you get a lot of calls of businesses, people out there wanting to walk you through the process?
Yes, we do. A lot of businesses, they do have a process in place, and then a lot of them don't. So we specifically will go out and do holder trainings on how to set up policy and procedures within their internal organization, tell them what the process needs to be. And of course, each business would have different dormancy periods for whatever type of monies that they're holding. And so we like to reach out to the holder, educate them, and let them know that we're here if they need help. If they don't know how to comply, or if they've never complied before, don't let it shoot a fear straight to you. But we will come out and we'll help you set it up, and we'll help you get your operations within reason to the West Virginia State Code on returning unclaimed property.
Well, and that's really my next question. How do these businesses stay in compliance? How do they make sure they are up to date with all the codes out there and regulations?
On our website, we update all of our forms and everything on a regular basis. We call in, we do go out and do holder trainings, and as a staff, we attend different trainings, keep ourselves up and abreast on upcoming news and the different laws and regulations.
Talking about training, you recently just presented at a conference. The National Association of State Treasurers has conferences every year, and you were asked to actually hold a presentation at one of these.
Yes, I did a presentation on due diligence, which emphasizes the holder's responsibility in reporting.
So what were some of the things you talked about?
I teamed up with two other individuals from more of the customer service side. They are developers of software that do unclaimed property reporting. But we spoke about the different dormancy periods related to the properties, what the outreach needs to be from that holder, the timing on returning the property to the individual, how it should be reported when it comes time to report it to each state, what the separate qualifications are for each state regarding whether they require electronic filing like West Virginia does. Some states don't require it. We do. Some states have a minimum guideline. If you're reporting more than 15 or 10 properties, you have to file electronically. And we went through those different caveats for each state. And then on how to mail the payment, how to get the payment to the state. Does it need to come certified mail or just regular first class? Whether forms need to be notarized or whether they don't. Just all the different aspects on the vendor side of how to report it.
So do you work with other states to make sure, to see what maybe other states are doing, what we could be doing more efficiently?
Yeah, that's
I'm sure there's a huge give and take when it comes to working with other states.
There is, and you have some states that do everything kind of falls in line to a similarity, but then there's a couple that always kind of hang on the outside on how they do things. But going to the conferences, and Treasurer Purdue always makes sure their representatives set to each conference, whether it's the NAST or the National Unclaimed Property Association conferences, or even UPPO, which is the Unclaimed Property and Professionals Organization. Somebody is sent there to to not only set as in the classes to set, as a sounding board for our state, but that we have representation there.
All right, this is all great information, Sarah. Right now we're going to take a short break, but when we return we will have more about the Treasurer's Unclaimed Property Program. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
We find all kinds of items, and that becomes unclaimed property, and it mounts into millions of dollars. It could be stock, it could be CDs, but it could also be a diamond ring or a gold watch of your dad's. We returned over $50 million to the people of West Virginia. I'm proud of that. You can go on our website, you can look at the names and see if your name's on there or someone that you recognize. We set the standards in the nation in returning unclaimed property.
Welcome back to Treasury Notes, a show brought to you by the Office of West Virginia State Treasurer John Purdue. I'm your host, Gina Joynes. I'm joined once again by Sara Dennison, our Receipts Manager for Unclaimed Property. Thank you so much again for being here with us today and talking a little bit about unclaimed property. Earlier we were talking about some of the compliance issues for businesses, the ones who are holders of unclaimed property. We also talked a lot about what you as an individual can do if you think you have unclaimed property and how you can claim it. You mentioned the site missingmoney.com. That's a site that people can go to for a nationwide listing of unclaimed property, but that's only a partial list too, correct?
It is. We published 200,000 names are available through that database. So it's just a given data pull. So it's not all inclusive.
That's why I think it's good to remind people that if you pick up one of our unclaimed property bulletins, if you see it in the newspaper, if you go to our website, or if you go to another website like missingmoney.com or another state's website, it's important that you check back more than once.
Right.
You check back maybe once a year, because there's something that could go through there and you didn't know about it. So if you've only checked once, or you checked once back in 2000, now you may have unclaimed property.
Exactly. With the unclaimed property deadlines, November 1st is the deadline for businesses to file. So we get a vast amount of reports that come in at that time. And it takes 2 to 3 months to process all these reports. I mean, you're looking at thousands and thousands of reports coming in. So, with our staffing, it takes more than just a week to get them all in. And so from November reports, you might not see anything in November, but come March or April, your name could still be there.
Absolutely. Well, we talked earlier about some of the things that qualify as unclaimed property, specifically the safe deposit box items, those tangible things that people put in there that are often considered unclaimed property. Treasurer Purdue, of course, has the authority to auction off these tangible items because we just can't store everything. Right. And so he does have that authority under law to hold these auctions. In the past, we've done a lot of physical auctions, but that's changing too. Yes. Technology is taking over now.
It is. We have actually partnered with a company out of Texas, and our auctions now will be held online electronically. So rather than having the auctioneer come in and rattle off the bidding process, and individuals, the only people able to bid are the ones in person. Now it will be available to a nationwide audience. People all over the world will be able to go on and view what we have.
And this is a great opportunity because those online auction sites right now are so hot. I mean, yes. You hear all the time about eBay and some of the other online auction sites. This is something that is really going to change the way unclaimed property is handled.
Oh, definitely. And it brings in so much from the pays perspective. I mean, it brings in so much more of a chance, not only for that exposure to a bigger audience, but the proceeds that we can get back to return to that individual, because even when the item is sold, that person that owns that individual will still own the proceeds. from whatever is auctioned off.
That's a really important point to note, that if you come back years and years later and your great-grandmother had something in a safe deposit box, it was auctioned off, you can still come back and claim the proceeds, claim the money that we got from that auction.
Yes, it still belongs to that rightful owner, and by launching the online electronic auctions, you're increasing the chances of getting more funding than what you would just having people come in like we used to, view the items on one day, come in the next day and bid, because you were so limited to what exposure you can get. Now, with that vast exposure, of course, it's going to run the bidding up higher.
And the treasurer holds the money and the proceeds from these auctions indefinitely, correct? Yes. So it's important to note that it could be years and years. There's no expiration date for your unclaimed property.
Once it's yours, it's always yours, and we'll hold it until it's returned.
Or it could also go to one of the heirs, too.
Right. Estates, yes.
What are some of the benefits to having this online auction? What are some of the things that are going to really change? And I mean, it frees up storage space. That's one of the things, one of the reasons why it's a good thing. But it also, like you said, it will just help move the process along so much quicker. It
will, and it'll make things go a lot. It's more safe and secure. I mean, we don't have to have someone, watching, guarding. We used to have to bring a security to guard the goods. Now they are boxed up and securely sent to this third-party site, and they're all taken care of within groupings, so there's no chance of someone just coming in and swiping it, picking grandma's ring up off the table and walking away with it.
In keeping up with technology, we've talked a lot about this show. The treasurer is in the process of eliminating paper records for unclaimed property too, so that's just another phase in the whole scheme of things when it comes to advancing technology, specifically within the unclaimed property division.
Yes, not only through e-claims, which things are now done online electronically, but we're also going back and taking all of the old claims that in the warehouse we have a voluminous amount of paper, just boxes upon boxes of old claims and reports, and those claims are all being imaged and scanned. So when we import those into our system and our database, if we want to see who the person was that claimed it, we don't just see that name, we see all the supporting documentation with it.
And I know the staff has been really actually excited. I think the staff has embraced the fact that we are moving toward this advancement in technology, and really tried to learn all the ropes and figure out how this is all going to work. But I think the staff has really embraced it as well.
We're really excited about it. It moves things along so much quicker, and there's so much less of a chance of things getting lost or misplaced, and you have that proof available immediately, rather than being at our office and having to call up, which is our term for ordering online a report, and then having to wait till the next day for it to be brought up by the runner. We can just go on our system, click a link, and we can view it right there.
Sarah, any final thoughts about the Unclaimed Property Division? Anything you want to say to people out there to encourage them to make sure that they're not missing money?
I think everybody just needs to take the opportunity to go out and search the website. Make it a point to do it every 6 months or so. And Treasurer Perdue really wants to get these funds back to the rightful owners. That's his goal, and that's our goal. That's our job.
And again, that website is wvtreasury.com. People can go there, click on the Unclaimed Property Division, and take it from there.
They sure can.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah Dennison. We really appreciate you being here with us today. And that wraps up today's show. Remember, you can always get the latest news, information, and events from the State Treasurer's Office, again, on our website, wvtreasury.com. Thanks again to Sarah Dennison with our Unclaimed Property Division, and thanks to the staff here at the West Virginia Library Commission, keeping you informed on the Library Television Network. I'm Gina Joynes with the Office of West Virginia State Treasurer John Perdue.